Welcome to this edition of Soul of Warren County. I'm your host, Mickey Gwynn. We often complain about our government, whether it's local, state, federal, but few of us seek public office to try to fix some of the problems. Well, my guest today has done that, in addition to other things in his life works. It's a pleasure to have in the studio with me today the Warren County Commissioner for District 3, Chris Rippy. Chris, welcome to Soul of Warren County.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Mick.
Now, I know you're not originally from McMinnville. Tell us a little bit about your early life and how you ended up in McMinnville.
I'll tell you the short version. So I'm originally from a little small town called Portland, Tennessee. It's up in Sumner County. A lot of people know it's the strawberry capital of Tennessee, kind of like McMinnville's. Warren County's the nursery capital. Grew up, I'm the youngest of 7 boys, both parents, regular working class. My mom worked up until she was able to retire and still stays pretty busy. Grew up in a very small community. It used to be kind of like an all-black community, and so family was everything. Mm-hmm. Grandmother across the street, aunt across the street, brother up the road, that type, Mayberry type town. So grew up, church beside my house, a lot of morals, very kind of strict family with, church was first, God, family, everything, mm-hmm. that type mentality. So a lot of the stuff that I do now is directly related to how I grew up. So that's kind of how I grew up. And then I moved here. My wife now, girlfriend at the time, lived here, and so I probably come here, I think, 2009, okay. And I've been here since, and just kind of liked it, stayed. It doesn't take me very long to get used to people and get to know people. So, right. And then the rest is kind of history. So I've been here going on 15 years now.
So you were in Portland during high school and all those formative years?
I did. I grew up early on, was born in Portland, Tennessee. All my family was born there. Went to high school. I graduated high school in 1997 and ended up going to MTSU. Okay. I was actually playing football, and then I was an acting major. Okay. And then I switched to social work, and then that kind of flourished. That's kind of like I feel like my calling as far as just being able to kind of help people. Now, if you'd asked me 20-something years ago, I would have told you that football was my life and that's what I wanted to do, but right. That all changed. Yeah. So, but everything is, have a lot of good roots in Portland. Yeah. Interesting,
you talk about football at MTSU. They announced this morning their new football coach, which
Coach Mason.
is a familiar name in this area, with Derek Mason, the former coach at Vanderbilt. So Portland's smaller than McMinnville, a little bit larger?
It's a little bit bigger.
That's what I thought.
If I'm not mistaken, a little bit. I think McMinnville has around 40, maybe 44,000. Portland's a little bit bigger than that now than it used to be, but it's growing. A lot of factories there, mm-hmm. Location. It's a town that won't, reminds me a lot of here, it won't grow outside a certain realm. Most of the land is owned by about 8 different families.
Oh, okay.
And that's just how they keep it. But mm-hmm. A lot of rich history there. My parents lived in the same house since, I think, 1961 or something like that. Same phone number. They're very southern people. So,
yeah. So is most of your family still in Portland?
Most are. Let's see. 2 of my brothers are still in Portland, and my parents. And I have another brother that lives in the same county, a little town called White House. I have a brother that's here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I have one in Clarksville. And then I have one in Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
So they're all pretty close, though.
Remind me, who's the basketball player that came from Portland?
Basketball player, probably Corey Brewer.
Corey Brewer.
Yeah,
okay.
He's well known. His family actually lives not even a fourth of a mile from my family. We all grew up. I'm older than him. We all grew up together. Me and his brother. Mm-hmm. His mom used to babysit us. But it's literally that small. Yeah. So. Yeah,
I couldn't remember the name, but Corey Brewer. Yeah, I remember that now. So you make your way to McMinnville, and of all things, you sort of get into, I should say, politics. You get into the county government, I guess. What sort of spurred you to get into that?
So I'll tell you, it's funny. I always said I would never run for a county office in a town that I'm not from.
Right.
And it was brought up to me probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm like, I don't know enough people. I'm not from here. Then things happen. I got more in the school system. One thing about doing social work, you're around people all the time.
Right.
You're in the school systems. You hear stuff. And then, of course, we had some changes the last election, and I had a few people kind of edging me to run. And I never want to run for something if I'm not ready. If I'm not led, I'm not going to do it. Things kept happening, and there was a lot of information I had, and I kind of wanted to see if I could make a change. Ended up being pretty successful. And I ran in won District 3 for county commissioner. Now, I will go back. I had my biggest influence on that. I had a cousin that was the vice mayor of Portland for several years.
Okay.
And I looked up to him as far as what he was able to do in government, and that just always intrigued me. He's the first person I called after I called my parents when I won.
Right.
And he was like, "It's about time." And so he kind of got me on that edge. So, my cousin Luther Bratton is a big key figure up there in Sumner County. So it was big.
Yeah. I know when I was looking in the Southern Standard, when they had you in there when you were running for office and if you had won and everything, and of course I'd been away, as you know, I've been away from McMinnville for a while, and I'm like, I don't remember any Rippies in McMinnville growing up.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking probably came in with family for either work or something of that nature kind of thing, and I called my sister. I'm like, who is Chris Rippy? I don't remember that family growing up. Did they move into McMinnville? She said, yeah, they moved in and everything. And that, to me, probably can make it a little bit harder when you're looking to run for public office because of just what you said. You're sort of new in town. People don't know you as well. But, sometimes I think people are a little bit hesitant to sort of vote for someone who's not homegrown.
Yeah, and I actually had people tell me that. I had people literally tell me, I like you. I like what you're saying. I just don't know. You're not from here.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I said, I respect it. I said, that's perfectly fine. But now, just from what I do, if you didn't know I wasn't from here, you'd never get, because I tend to know a lot of people.
Right, right.
And I make it a point to meet people. And that's what drives me. So, small towns do that. If you're not from somewhere, you don't know the layout. Do you know this person? How's he going? And that's the thing. But I'm all about getting to know a person and see what they're about. And if you can just be morally good and make good decisions, and of course I'm big on the future of kids, especially in this county, but anywhere in the state. If that's going to be an opposition to what I think, we're probably not going to align well.
Yeah.
So that's just how I am.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it can have just the opposite effect. And I think sometimes an outsider can bring a new perspective in, but I know it can be a lot of opposition to that just from that fact. But I think sometimes that's good to bring in a little bit of a different view, a different viewpoint of where you've lived before and things of that nature. But it's also a tough thing to get into when you're not from here. So I was like, he did well. He must have done well campaigning to be elected for someone, like you say, who wasn't originally from here.
Yeah, it went well, and I love I love campaigning. Anytime I get to talk is always a plus. my wife will tell you that, and my kids. And I enjoyed the commission. I'm on a couple of good committees. I've gotten to know people. I guess I'm one of the younger ones on the committee, on the commission, but it's worked out well. They listen to my ideas, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot how stuff goes. It's amazing how county government works when you really kind of dig into it. And that's just kind of, I don't just do things just to be doing them. I want to make an impact, whether it be now or 4 years from now, or if I run to get reelected, however that works.
So the commissioners, the incumbents all sort of welcomed you in.
Oh,
no problems with that.
Yeah, I had no problem. Of course, we had a lot of, if you know, this county had we flipped a lot of seats in this county.
Right.
Commission and other ones too, and it was a big deal. But I had, for the most part, everybody gets along as far as me. Now, I'm not with people 24/7, but
right.
My two committees I'm on, building and grounds and policy and personnel, I absolutely love. And I'm actually got elected secretary on those committees, and I did, I kind of did that on purpose because I wanted to kind of be able to, have control of some of the meetings and see what we're typing up and ask questions.
Right.
Got to ask a lot of questions, otherwise you get left behind.
With the big turnover in commissioners last election, Did you sort of see that as maybe people wanting a change, or it just sort of happened that way? I mean,
I think it's both. I think it's twofold. I think you had a national and statewide flipping when if you want to really get into the red versus blue.
Right.
That's kind of what pushed it. But at the same time, just from me talking to people when I was out, they wanted to see a change. You know, you had people just kind of tired of, people mention about growth of the county. And people get scared about that. Not necessarily bringing in 100,000 people, but grow as far as like, let's get some stuff that's going to keep Warren County people here. Let's get another department store. Let's get another restaurant to compete with Applebee's. So we don't have to go out and spend our dollars at Cookeville, or now Tullahoma's booming really well.
Right.
That was part of it. Some of them felt like, the same commission was not going to make that decision. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's public knowledge. People voice that wherever they go. So whether or not that happens or not, that has very little sometimes to do with the county commission versus who wants to come to McMinnville, and you have an industrial development board that helps with that too. So it's not all just the county commission, but it helps to know kind of what's going on.
So have you found that trying to balance growth with sort of keeping that small town atmosphere can be tough? I'm sure it can be.
It's very tough, and one good thing about being in Warren County, it does remind me a lot of where I grew up. And when I tell you that Portland they will not allow it to outgrow itself, they will not do it. Okay. It's a very pretty town. It's very safe, but they've actually started having people come in and move there. It's a lot bigger than when it was when I was a kid.
Sure.
Here it can be the same way, but you don't want to make it, Warren County residents they never want to be as big as like Cookeville. Never going to do that. But it has been tough. People have been, and we got new people moving in all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
I have neighborhoods, my old neighborhood, they had, I think 8 people moved from California all in like 1 week. The cost of living is a safe place to live compared to California.
Right.
So it is tough, but there's a lot of stuff that has to happen. A lot of people like to put a lot of, sometimes blame on the commission, but there's a lot of other, things that has to happen, and negotiations and talks for that to happen. So, there's new apartments going up, new restaurants are coming. Eventually we'll have to grow. Our schools right now, some of our schools are overcrowded, high school for one. At some point, whether it be, this court that I'm on or another one, they're gonna have to look at either building a bigger high school or expanding, or looking at a ninth grade academy, something. You can't just keep overcrowded for years and expect it to turn out to be good. It's not going to happen.
Right, right.
So that's some stuff we just have to face and figure out how to do it. Yeah. But, you got to have the money and all that stuff. So I think where we are now, I really think, another thing too, I tag on, there's, when the school board made changes, I think that's a big plus too. Of course, we've got another election coming up. I think if everybody can actually work together, school board, county government, city government, which is very hard to do sometimes.
Sure.
It'll flourish.
Yeah, I think so too. I think McMinnville has the opportunities to grow. I think it's got an opportunity to increase tourism into McMinnville and things of that nature. But you have to plan those things, and you have to keep a hold on. I lived down in Murfreesboro, and when I first moved there in 2005, it was sort of the ideal size.
Yeah.
Well, Murfreesboro has grown tremendously, and there's a number of native people from Murfreesboro that say Murfreesboro is now little Nashville. It's grown so much. Yeah. So it's hard to sometimes balance that growth and sort of keep that small town atmosphere, but it seems like McMinnville has done a good job of doing that.
I think they have, and I think that'll never go away. I think you got to be careful too, because with growth sometimes comes danger.
Right.
And that's the thing I like about how the county flipped things last year was there are certain things we have to keep out. We don't want to start having the same issues that they're having in Franklin, Tennessee, and Nashville, Murfreesboro. You don't want it to trigger down. People start bringing danger south. They never go north. So, we got to keep that stuff in mind. That's a big deal to me, because if it hits the county and it hits citizens, it's going to end up hitting our kids. And that's just one thing I don't want to allow if I can help it.
Yeah. And I've noticed some of the fall festival we had last year in October, this year in October and all, and talking to some of those people who moved in, my first question was, you came from California, how did you end up in McMinnville, Tennessee? And a lot of them, you know, it's interesting how they would go out and do research online about cost of living, tax rates, things of that nature. And they would come here, and when they came here, they just sort of fell in love with the place and stayed. I mean, we're a very diverse group of people who've come in pretty much on their own.
Right.
Whereas it seemed like in my time growing up here and years after that, usually a job brought them in. You know, it was Carrier or whoever brought, you know, company personnel in, and they come here and they might settle. But there's interesting how people are just coming in just sort of on their own now. Yeah. And I think that's a tribute to Warren County and McMinnville, that people are coming in from places as diverse as California and stay and enjoy it. Yeah. And so I think you don't want to lose that if you can, that type of people, that type of sort of atmosphere that people can come here. It is small town, but they got what they need, and they stay. I think that's a good tribute to the county.
And they feel safe, and that's a big thing. You don't stay anywhere if you don't feel safe, and that is a big, you know, that is a big deal now, and it's, you know, grants to Warren County for overall being a safe county.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. Talk about your work in social work. It's got to be a tough career field to get into when you deal with things that come along with that. Tell us a little bit about sort of why you gravitate. I know you said you talked about football and then acting, I think, and now you got into. How did that transition happen?
So to be honest with you, the true story about how I didn't know social work was even a major in college.
Right.
A girl came to me in one of my classes and said, "You seem like you're really good with people. You ever tried social work?" And I said, "I don't know what that is." And I went and talked to a professor. First day I was kind of like, this is not even class to me. This is kind of what I do.
Right.
Went through school. I've had a lot of different jobs. You know, I do a lot of work with kids, I do a lot of stuff with mental health. Okay. Mentally ill. I work locally here at Generations Mental Health right now, and I also work at a inpatient psych hospital in Murfreesboro called Trust Point. So I do a little bit of everything. Currently in grad school to get my master's in social work. And of course from there I think I'm gonna look more into like consulting and being a trainer versus doing the clinical stuff. But I love dealing with people. I don't care your background, where you're from. I like to help people. I like people to be happy. Of course, you can't save everybody.
Sure.
But I feel like if I got something to present to somebody that's going to help them, that's just what I do. I've always done that, apparently. My mom told me that even as a kid, I was always the one that would go make sure everybody's taken care of. Or if somebody couldn't do something, I want them on my team so I could show them how to do it. Right. It's just how I am. It's nothing nobody kind of made me do. Okay. But social work is just natural to me. I don't take stuff home. And if you're a person who is sensitive, especially nowadays, and you take stuff home and you get too involved with people, social work is never going to work out for you. You can't do it nowadays. Because I've dealt with some of the worst cases throughout Middle Tennessee with over the 21 years I've been doing it.
Right.
So it's different now. There's a lot of trauma out there for people, and you got to know how to listen to it, accept it, and hear people out and see what you can do to help them.
And I guess that's got to be a very vital part of being a social worker. You talk about taking the job home and taking situations personal and things of that nature. Because I'm sure it could at a point start to affect your mental health and well-being.
You could if you're not grounded. I grew up, Christian home, faith-based. My mom is probably the most down-to-earth, relaxed person ever. And people think that I'm laid back. My mom is, nothing bothers my mom.
Right.
Thank God I got her personality from that. But nothing bothers me. Now, the first couple of years, I think I would bring stuff home because it was new to me, but you can't do that. You help people like you can, but I'm never one to stress out over a lot. I don't bring problems home, go back the next day. But if you're not grounded, it can rub off on you because there's a lot of needs out there. There's a lot of needs in this county alone, but when you go out, I work a lot of Middle Tennessee cases.
Right.
And you have to be ready for it. So, luckily I'm fortunate. I base it on my family. And my mom and my grandmother are the same personality to me, and they just instill a lot of stuff, and I think I got a lot of their genetics on that part.
Do you have to be able to separate husband, dad from social worker, I guess is a better term, once you get home? Or does some of that creep into, your home life? Not sort of in a bad way, but Do you use some of your training and education at home?
I do, especially when every now and then there'll be something come up with the kid, and usually some around social media or something.
Right, right.
Every now and then I use scare tactics to say, look, this is what I have to deal with at work or out in the community, or I was in such and such state. This is what happened, and sometimes I'll use it to say this is what could happen. And I think that's great that I'm able to do that. Of course, my wife's in education. She taught for I think 13 years now. She's an instructional coordinator at the middle school. She sees stuff too. So, so our kids that are still in school, they don't have a way out when it comes to what could happen, because we make sure that that's, because there's no perfect parent. But yeah, I use stuff that happens a lot because it's critical nowadays. Social media's got this generation tore up. But I use it quite a bit because I deal a lot with kids. Most of my cases now are all kids, anywhere from 6 to 18.
Oh, okay.
So I get that bulk, and they go through a lot of stuff that I just never even imagined going through. So I have to use that, and it actually helps when there's something that one of my kids are dealing with, which doesn't happen a lot, but every now and then. It's more of I use it more of prevention than I do anything. So that's a big plus for us.
Have you noticed that? You talked about how you were grounded with your family and church and things of that nature. Do you find a lot of the clients you work with, they didn't have that same grounding? Either the family maybe was split, or there may not be a father in the home, or things of that nature. Do you see that?
It's a combination of everything, and it doesn't matter what. It used to be you could go out and depict, African Americans in this part of the town are going to be raised by single moms. Right. Now it's everybody.
Okay.
There's lack of parents. You can be a parent there physically, and just not parent.
Right.
You got drugs that's in the home. You got incarcerations. You got a lot of mental health diagnoses. You got medication, over medication. You have a lot of stuff. You have. Like I say, I'm a faith guy, so you have a lot of families that don't know anything about. You got some families grew up in church, but will not expose their kids to faith and Jesus and God. Of course, that's everything that I do comes from that.
Right.
So I have no problem speaking that, but my honest opinion, I've seen a decline in that since they start taking prayer and stuff out of schools. That's just me personally,
right.
But the stuff starts at home, but there's such a need and decline in it that it's all over the place. It used to be, 3 or 4% of mine I would go see 15, 16 years ago would have single parent, not go to church. Now you're 40, 50%, and that's just what it is. And then you bring the abuse thing in, and that's a whole different realm of trauma, and that's just outrageous. And it happens as we talk. There'll be 8 kids abused in 10 seconds across the mid-state. Yeah. And that's just sad. So,
yeah. Well, you mentioned social media. You're a social worker. You're involved in those kind of things. I don't see it going away. Do you think we can do a better job of monitoring social media? Do at some point you just have to put trust in primarily your kids, I guess, in a lot of these situations to sort of monitor themselves? That's a tough one.
It's hard to do. I wish they would have never come out with smartphones. I know that's going to make people mad, but I just had a kid the other day that I made her aunt, get her a flip phone and give her a smartphone. And I said, you give me 30 days and you see how different it is. And the girl's not even asking for it.
Oh, okay.
Well, because she had bullying issues and all this other stuff.
Right.
If you don't have it available, you tend to lose interest in it.
Right.
But we've come so far with this thing that it keeps our kids occupied, and then people need them. And then people bring up, what if they need to call home? It's all kinds of stuff. But it's at the other side, it's such a big deal. It causes so many issues. You can, they have the parental controls and everything, but everybody finds ways to get around those. And then if you don't have a cell phone, you can use your friend's phone, or you can jump on a tablet, or there's ways around it. But I'm all for one keeping the pressure, whatever's worked, even at minimal. So if parental blocks are working, even at 10%, just keep doing it versus getting rid of it. Then we got to start back over again. But I cannot see this country ever getting rid of social media because it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
It's making too much money, and they know that. But it's a problem. So we have to find a way, and that's probably going to trickle down from federal government, state government, figure a way to fight this, because it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. I can see where years ago you had issues with drug abuse and alcohol abuse and things of that nature. Social media wasn't even on the horizon back in those days. And now that's become another factor for people like you who have to go out and counsel, especially our young kids and things of that nature. But, it sort of waves. I can remember back when I had no Facebook page. I used to, my girls were a lot younger than them, I said, I don't understand this issue of texting. Just call me. I used to tell them, don't text, call me.
Yeah.
I text all the time now.
Yeah.
So it almost like you get caught up in it after a while. And your friends are doing it, your family are doing it. When someone tells you, well, that's the only way I can get it to you. I remember I was talking to someone the other day, and they said something about a fax. I'm like, does anybody even use a fax machine anymore? Yeah. But with them, they had a fax. Send me a fax. I don't do fax. I can send you an email. I can scan it into an email or whatever. But it's almost like as time goes on, you almost are captured by it to live. You
get caught up in it, and everybody else is doing it. And if you use it for the right reasons, it's fine. But I mean, it's very entertaining, and most people don't realize how much they're on their phones anyway. And I'm probably guilty of it as well. But it's just become a problem. I deal a lot with cyberbullying and social media bullying a lot at the hospital I work at, and you'd be amazed how many people. Their life is depicted based off of what they see on social media, and they run with it, and that to me is sad, because it's not even real. A lot of times they're not talking to a real person,
right?
But they base their value off of something they see on social media, and that's a huge problem, because they grew up and everything's basically artificial when they don't know how to do anything on their own. So it takes away a lot of. They become very dependent on those phones, and it's a big deal. But I don't have the answer to that. I wish I did, because if I had a magic wand, I would probably just get rid of them. People have to deal with it.
Yeah, and probably more one-on-one, person-to-person kind of contact versus, like you say, this artificial intelligence is starting to take over things that we couldn't even imagine years ago.
Yep.
It's starting to take over. So I'm sure it makes your job tougher to be able to go in and counsel those folks. I could just imagine going to someone and say, give them a flip phone. I just can't imagine the kind of response you might get.
She wasn't happy, but she respected it, and I tell you one thing, her little life right now is a lot easier. She's young, but it's a lot easier the past 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see what happens.
Like it's working. Okay, good. It's always good to get those positive results.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's for sure. But I know it's got to be a tough career path for someone to go in. But like I said, you're always going into not sort of good stories. You're always going into a situation where it's not the best environment or the best situations and all. And I just admire people like you who do those kind of things.
I appreciate it.
I admire the people who do that. I admire people like you who go in and try to be part of government to try to make things better. Because as I mentioned in my opening, we can always complain about things, but not many people want to go and try to make them better.
Right.
And I think you're sort of attacking those things on 2 different fronts with what you're doing with the county government and what you're doing in your career field too. So
yeah,
very much appreciate that. Start back with the county. Where do you see us going? I know you talked about maybe some restaurants or businesses coming in. Where do you see Warren County going in the next, say, 5-10 years? Do you see those restaurants coming in and things of that nature?
I do. I think eventually we'll have more people coming in because they like coming to Warren County. They may choose us over, if you think about it.
Right.
They're choosing Warren County over Murfreesboro, Cookeville, Tullahoma, Woodbury, Chattanooga, wherever. They're choosing us for a reason. Well, that's going to cause growth. Mm-hmm. Eventually, we're going to have to step up and make things more expandable. So it could be good. It's not bringing in 5 restaurants. So give us a restaurant to compete against, Applebee's. Bring in a department store where men can actually go shop instead of us going to Cookeville giving them our sales tax. Right. It's one of those type things. And it's not a huge growth, but just for the people of Warren County, I feel like they should have adequate means to stay here, shop here, eat here, because they live here. There's no point in having to go every single time you need something to another county. Tullahoma is booming right now, and everything they have is off of one road. It's off Jackson Street.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have to get the same stores, but we could at least get something. So I feel like we will grow. and I feel like it will grow within the means that it will not outgrow itself. I really feel like the people of Warren County, the commission, everybody else who has an involvement in that, I really think they're not going to let it outgrow itself. But I think it's going to be good. I feel like it'll still be safe. I think it'll even be even safer 5 years from now than it is now. Because we do have some crime here, but I think, you know, we're putting stamps on some of it. So I like the county. I would have never ran for a commission of a county I don't plan on being in.
Yeah, right.
But I do think it's going to, I think it's going to grow the right way. And there's some stuff we still have to tackle as well. One other thing I would love to see is how we're going to reduce our homeless population, whether it be shelters or tiny homes or whatever. We can talk all day about how they got there. I don't, you know, but we have to fix it. When you're faced with something, we have to find means. I really want that to be able to start being tackled over the next 5 to 10 years, so that population doesn't need to keep growing without some treatment and support. So that's a kind of a big deal too. And it's been discussions, but you have to be really careful how you do that. So.
Now, one thing that I was told, and I don't know if you can confirm or not, that some of the issues with the homeless population here in Warren County was because some of those folks were in places like Murfreesboro and other cities that really restricted their ability to camp and things of that nature. They sort of migrated to Warren County. Have you seen that issue, or are these, I shouldn't, probably not the right word to say, but are these homegrown homeless people?
They're both. There's some here that's been here for a while. Some, we have some people I know that went to school with some of these people. Then you have some that trickle in.
Yeah.
I know for a fact some have moved to Murfreesboro, because when Murfreesboro start growing and putting up the new bridges, they start moving people out. Murfreesboro, as big as it is, has a lot of homeless, but they don't have a lot of shelters.
Right.
But then, you know what, you've watched news, Nashville's pushing people this way. So like I say, people don't necessarily go north, they go south. And once you find a little community or town that, you know, we're not kicking people out, then that's where they migrate. And we have to be careful with that, because I'd rather kind of help fix the problem and give them things, but, you know, that's just what people do. So it's a little bit of both on those. And it's going to continue to grow if we don't figure out a way to kind of caption that, so.
And so from what I hear you saying, you feel that government has a role in that. They need to take on that challenge.
Yeah, we can. There's ways to do. There's ways to look at that, and it's a lot. You know, there's places now giving out grants to actually help. And we actually, as far as homeless, we haven't got to that point where we need to ask for that. But I'd rather be proactive. But there's places who ask for grant. They build homes. They kind of get them in group homes. A lot of these people have mental health issues, and mental health, as you know, it's everything now you watch news is mental health related.
Right, right.
So you don't want to you can't just put people in jail for being homeless. But there are other avenues to look at. And Warren County, I just want us to be on top of it. But county government, city government also, they can work together on that. And when that time comes, I know it'll be a conversation, but I want to be a big part of that, because that's kind of true to me, because it's going to come up with mental health stuff as well.
Sure.
And then you start adding kids there. Now, there's not only single men and women are coming. You know, there's people with families that come too.
Okay.
So not as big as some other cities, but when you start seeing that, you know that's not the kid's fault. So what are we going to do? Are we going to sit there and look at it every day we go through town, or we're going to do something about it? That's kind of how my mindset is. So I already kind of be proactive before that actually happens. So it's kind of some other things, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Right now we're Chris Rippy, Commissioner, District 6.
3.
3, District 3. Are we looking at maybe Chris Rippy, County Executive, Chris Rippy, Mayor in the future?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have no, this is just me talking now, I have no indication, motivation, nothing inkling me to run for a county executive or a mayor. But I will tell you this, the only thing that I've ever wanted to pursue that I would actually feel like I would thrive more in will be running for a state representative.
Okay, okay.
When I'm ready.
Right.
It's not one of the things where, hey, there's an open spot coming up, you should run for it. I don't do that. It has to be when I'm ready, when I feel like I have enough knowledge, that whole thing. But I never wanted to do a county executive, whatever. And I
Okay.
say that, but
Right.
you know, but the state stuff, I like it because I know a lot of that stuff in school, a lot of proceedings. I got a lot of friends, several friends in state government who I'm pretty fond of, and I like how that stuff works. I like the impact of what those representatives are supposed to be doing.
Right, right.
So I could see that, but you never know. You never know me. Like my mom says, you never know what this boy's going to do.
Well, you were talking about, you know, how much you've learned by being a county commissioner and things of that nature. I think obviously that would hold you good if you decided to pursue either state elections or things of that nature. So, I mean, having that kind of background gotta be a good box checker for you if you decide to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
Yeah. And having your background in social work, you know how to work a crowd and all that kind of stuff. I can see you. I can see you there.
Yeah, that's always the fun stuff. But yeah, we'll see. You never know what it'll hold, but everything's a timing issue with me, and so you know, we'll see what the future holds. But it's you know, there's some political stuff that's sparking interest that I may look into further as well. So
Good. Well, Chris, I want to say thank you for coming in today. Appreciate all you do for our county.
Appreciate
and
it.
also for the people of our county. It makes a difference, and it takes a special person to do that. So I really appreciate what you do for us.
I appreciate it.
All right. And thank you for watching today, too. Please let's join us the next time. And as always, make today and every day a great day.